This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Can you hear? Santino, hear me? Hear me? Okay. Request a mic. I'm doing this from my computer, so hang on a second. I'm gonna have to send you a co-host. How do I do this from my computer? Holy cow. Can you request a mic? Ready, we'll get started here shortly if I can figure this out. I normally do these off my phone, so this is crazy. All right, Santino, I gave you the mic.
Can you hear me, Jenny? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hold on, let's see.
I'm speaking. I hope you can hear me.
Now. I can hear you now.
There's no purple pill, just FYI on the bottom of the screen. So I don't know if you're aware of that. Otherwise, everybody keep like obviously you can't go to the purple pill to retweet the space. Can you go to the top of your screen? There's a little arrow pointing up with a little underbox. Just tap that and retweet it from there. Quote, tweet it, what have you. Get some more people in here. Thank you so much.
So Santino, there is an echo.
Is there an
I
echo?
hear an echo on my end.
There's no echo coming from you, no feedback coming from you. You're crystal clear.
Okay. All right, this is good. Oh, okay. All right, this is good. Oh, okay. Warriors in the house. I will request a mic. This is the first time I'm doing a space from a computer, so I don't know how to do the co-host. Do you know how to do that, Santino?
I don't know how to use a computer, unfortunately.
All right. Alpha, request the mic. I'll open your mic, my friend.
And allegedly, Alpha was in the Matrix 2 nights ago on his computer.
Oh my gosh. Let me see. Yeah, it doesn't. Okay. All right, Alpha, request. Are you there? There you are. Hello, Alpha.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh my goodness.
So Santino is right. It's actually I have my laptop, the thing that I started my whole podcast with. I still have that. I keep it as my backup. So should the Mac Studio ever go down, I have that, and it's also it's another window, right, to research stuff. And it was literally doing like that Matrix glitch. Now Santino, it hasn't done it since. It did it in that space alone, bro.
So how are we doing this morning?
I'm good. And if you don't want the echo from the computer, I think you would have to have like AirPods or headphones in.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get them. Hang on a second.
Other than that, I'm just making a coffee. So this way, I've had two sick little ones the last couple of days, and Santino's throwing up flares. So I think he's trying to get himself to be brought back up.
Okay, hang on. All right. All right. Is there an echo? Yep.
I don't hear an echo now.
Yay! You hear an echo?
No, I don't hear an echo.
Okay, cool. All All right, everybody. I want to welcome you guys to the Revival of America podcast. I am Jimmy. For those of you that don't know, I'm the owner and the host. Today we have Alpha Warrior in the house. He's going to be speaking on just kind of everything that's going on. He did a great show last night, everybody. If you didn't watch it with Josh, Josh will be on next week on my show as well. Alpha, I kind of want, if you can, maybe go over a little bit about what you guys talked about. You talked about the honey pots. You talked about, obviously the Pope dying. Also, too, kind of put on with Klaus Schwab and what his wife was doing behind the scenes with these little massages, and also too, I want to know from you because you spoke on that as well. I don't think we're going to get to the midterms. What do you think? I want to see if you can maybe touch on that a little bit. Go ahead, Alpha. The floor's yours.
Yeah, 100%. It was wasn't letting me initially unmute there. So one, I want to tell everybody, do a solid. If you haven't done it already, repost the space, tag some people, get them in here so we can have a great conversation, ask them questions, throw some theories out there. And more people means more synergy, and that's exactly what we want. So to kind of recap on last night's space with Joshopedia, I've always called them the human encyclopedia. But somebody, and I don't remember who it was in the chat, said Joshopedia, and I was like, that's absolutely brilliant. So he is going to get some shirts made for that, and I think it's really cool. But we have a lot of conversations offline, where we kind of bounce thoughts off each other. Despite what a lot of people on social media might want to say when they attack me or Josh or anyone, oh, you guys just like to throw this stuff out there for clout and clicks, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Um, a lot of us get in some pretty friendly but very heated discussions offline, and the purpose behind that is we want to make sure that we're being at least as accurate as we can to what's the most plausible outcomes. And then obviously it's comparing notes from sources and people that reach out to us. And what's kind of interesting is now that it's been a few years doing this, you can start to figure out which one of your sources is also, and I just got the co-host Jenny, so whatever you did, it worked. um
Yay!
So, all right, I accepted it too, so it should pop up in a sec. So we you kind of figure out who your sources also talk to, and this kind of makes the picture make a lot more sense. But this a back of the book version recap of last night. One of the main things um was with gold, and if for those that have been watching some of the shows me and Josh have done together, or even our independent shows, one of the things that we both have always, agreed on was the bad guys need the current economic system to collapse, and the good guys need the current economic system to collapse to either recalibrate or institute whatever the new system is going to be. So the one thing that is the inevitable is that the way the current system works is going to cease to exist because both sides need that. So that's been the one easiest variable in kind of these theoretical outcomes. And what Josh had kind of talked about, and this kind of played into, the final in theory that I had put out about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was, surrounding the tariffs and surrounding China and, surrounding these banks that are bringing physical gold back into their banks here in the United States, was that gold was going to be instrumental in the way this new economic system was going to function, however that looked. And of course, you saw 2 nights ago, gold started to skyrocket and hit the highest that it's ever been valued at. At the same time, Josh explained that through these tariffs and some of the things that our quote unquote adversaries had been doing, um, was selling out our debt. And that the United States, specifically Trump, this was a major chess move because Trump was getting back the leveraged debt that people had against our country, which was huge. You have an article that also broke that we touched on, and this was a few days ago, um, that explained how Trump was talking to certain people, and I don't remember the gentleman's name. I'm going to fire up my computer so I can get it for you guys right now. But it was talking about having a shadow share for the Fed because obviously Powell has some time there. And then the article goes on to explain how even though Powell would still be the head of the Federal Reserve, that this shadow guy that everybody knows is coming, any public opinions he puts out there was going to have a direct influence on what was going to happen with the markets, the Fed, et cetera. So it was the way of, we've heard shadow governments, but now you have even a shadow position within the Fed. But ultimately, what it broke down to was this is the pathway where you make the Fed go solvent when it can no longer pay out what it's supposed to because the money just doesn't exist. And for those that don't know, because it is a private organization, it's not a government organization like a lot of people had. So we talked on that. The other thing we talked on, I was starting to worry there because he didn't want to take my password. I was like, damn it, they finally got me. They defeated all the security measures I had, but I realized I had the caps lock key on there. So false alarm, very false. Alpha's still good. Um, the other thing we're talking about is is Trump as the chess master in this. A lot of people have really come after Trump, all the way back to when he's announced his presidency, but specifically in, this, we're still within that 100-day window. They have just amplified coming after this guy. Not just people that were obviously, anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-America, anti-conservatives, but you started to see this come from people that had presented the image of being, pro-Trump, pro-MAGA, pro-conservative, etc. And every time that they've come after him, you've always seen that those attacks for that particular topic is something that's only lived for a few days, maybe a week. Because then obviously you see even mainstream media has to report on, as well as all of us that are putting the information out there. But you see mainstream media and alternative media had an important call. So if you can cover the air for about 20 seconds, I got to take this real quick.
Yeah, no problem. For those of you guys that don't know, I am Jenny. Again, for those of you just joining, I'm Jenny. I am the owner of the podcast. Everybody, we are being listened to in over 100 countries. So if you're being listened to in over 100 countries, so if you get to the podcast late ever, we do lives here on X Spaces as well as Telegram. You can always follow us on the podcast hosts, which are iHeart, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, and Amazon Music. And then also to follow the social medias. Everybody, I'm just not over here on X. I'm on Facebook. Check us out at Facebook, Jenny Jareed, Facebook, at Jenny_Jareed right here on X, at JJareed Social, at JJareed Instagram, Revival America on Telegram, and we just created a YouTube, so all of our stuff is going on over there as well. So check those out, everybody. And that way, if you come in late, you can always listen to the replay. So we'll wait for Alpha to come back. Santino, do you want to say anything in the meantime?
I just posted something in the nest above. This is actually breaking as far as I'm concerned. Swiss pharmaceutical giant Roche to officially invest $50 billion in the United States to avoid tariffs. So as you can see, the plan is moving. It's going exactly the way we want to. We want to bring back more money into the United States, do everything over here. People are avoiding the tariffs. They're all bending the knee and kissing the ring. This is exactly President Trump's plan. It's working magnificently.
Yeah, and everybody take these wins out of the noise. I always tell my audience, there's a lot of noise going on out there. Take a lot of these wins, no matter how big or small they are, winning, winning, winning. So stay out of the noise, the black pilling, the fear mongering, and the doom and gloom, because it's out there, it's fierce. And watch for those trolls. All right, Alfie, be back.
Yes. I heard Santino announce something about breaking news, but I wasn't able to catch it. You mind repeating that, Santino?
No problem. I just posted something in the nest above Alpha. What it's saying is Swiss pharmaceutical giant Roche to officially invest $50 billion in the United States to avoid tariffs. And what is a major development for the industry, Switzerland-based pharmaceutical giant Roche has announced a $50 billion investment plan to the USA. Indeed, the company is set to increase its presence in the country to avoid ongoing threat of tariffs and sectors. And as well with how I take this is that we do get our pharmaceutical generic or brands from China. This is much more safer, and we're bringing back money back to the United States. Everything it's just exactly what Trump is planning and doing. It's working perfectly.
100%. Talk about a perfect timing with that sense, to what I was talking about. So I'm glad I asked you to repeat that. Were you going to say something, Jenny?
No, I'm just trying to get rid of this echo.
Oh, gotcha. It's not too bad on my side. You can hear the the sound difference, but it's not coming out as an echo. Just so you know, on my end. I don't know about for the other listeners. But to continue on with this conversation is you have Trump that has routinely showed that these moves that he's making are not just showing that he's several steps ahead of his adversaries, domestic and foreign, but he's also and this is where I think is just absolutely genius. Listen, I understand the brilliance that probably is surrounding Trump when it comes to these operational plans, but there's no doubt in my mind that there's also a synthetic version of intelligence that's helping them, because these things are so perfect the way they're planned to compensate or have a contingency for anything that his adversaries do. It's just been to perfection. And so what I mean by that is not only is Trump getting the response that he wants from these objectives, but he's also doing it in a way that is exposing to all of us who all these people are that don't have the best intentions for this country or Trump at the same time. And what you're starting to see now is you saw right out of the gate, if we look at the first 45 days, they were attacking Trump immediately. Like the second it hit the headline, there was the immediate response. And a lot of these posts or talking points were almost verbatim. Now, what you're seeing is a very slowed response, and they're doing it in a way where it's like, wow, this can be this can it, it's the he's he has made his opponents taper back how aggressive they come at him. Now, there's a faction that are just going to do it, and it's obvious because we know where they stand politically. But from with the side that doesn't want to readily expose themselves, he's made them taper down their aggressiveness. Why is this good? Because that means that they're not going to be as effective as they want to be at undermining his presidency. So, and I'm telling you, the strategy behind that is perfect. So that brought us into a lot of the conversations surrounding these exposure operations. And one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with Josh is the last couple of years I've been doing my best to train and teach people about the pattern recognition of, we'll just say, the deep state, because that's kind of all encompassing, right? But at the same time, there's also been operations being done by the good guys. Now, I've never really gone into what those operations look like, because it would have been way too, and this was a decision I made, that it would have been way too confusing to teach what a bad guy operation looks like and also what a good guy operation looks like, because there's so many similarities. It just would have been very confusing and people would have mixed it up. And so it was the priority decision that I made was, let's focus on how the bad guys do operations so people have high confidence when determining whether something's an op or not. But now we're at this stage where you're going to see an acceleration in operations, not just from the bad guys, but also from the good guys. And so what this means now is it is time to start learning what a good guy or quote unquote white hat operation would look like. And the reason why now it's important is because what you're going to see at such an accelerated rate over the next few weeks and few months, you need to know that it's not just bad guys. So, if you go back to the show that I did Monday,
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
I provided, and I did a post out there too. I think I did, it might have been Sunday or Monday, um, on recognizing these good guy operations, because we're about to see the apex moments of information warfare. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring Josh on to talk about these exposure operations. And it's not just, I don't want people to think, well, it's exposure operations are just, profiles here on social media. That's an aspect of it, but exposure operations also apply to government officials. It also applies to world leaders. It also applies to things like the World Economic Forum, the NIH, the UN, NATO. It's equally, if not probably even more important when it comes to those things. And so, in these exposure operations, brings us a topic a lot of people want to shy away from too, right? I heard in a space last night when somebody brought up the cube board. I don't mess with that. I'm in reality, and it's very sad to see this many years in, people still have that mentality, even though the boards have been validated so many times. So on another show that I did last night on Badlands, we brought this conversation up as well. And I think it ties into this. That's why I'm going to bring it up. Is a lot of people, including myself at the beginning, asked the question, well, are the cue boards real? And that's actually the wrong question, because the obvious answer is yes, it's 100% real. You can go to the boards and physically look at them and read them. They're there. You can do this analysis of it. So I think the question people are intending to ask is, who's behind it? Is it a bad guy operation? Is it a good guy operation? Is it, Johnny Appleseed down in his basement with a bunch of buddies pulling off, the biggest, rug pull of all time? And that's the easiest one to dismantle, because you've s- you've seen at least two presidential administrations that have gone through these boards, and neither administration has come out and said who it is. So whether it's Trump's administration didn't come out and say, hey, it's a troll, or it's this bad guy, or it's this particular country. You didn't hear Biden's administration come out and say it's a troll, it's this country, or it's even, something that Trump's doing. Like, neither side has pointed out who controls it. And why is that significant? Because both these administrations have the intelligence, you know, to figure that out. So what that tells me is they absolutely have a good idea, if not a complete idea, of where it comes from, but they don't want to disclose it. So that tells you the power that's behind the boards. Good or bad, it tells you the power that these boards have. And if you recognize something has that much power and influence, why would you not want to research it? Either research it because you think it's a good guy, or research it because you think it's a bad guy. And art of war, know your enemy, right? So, but in the boards, it tells us about the Pope. It tells us about, the Pope is the chair. Who's the chair? The chair will be stepping down. And then, of course, we get to Monday, April 21st, and we get the formal announcement that the Pope is 10-7, and that Klaus Schwab is stepping down as head of the World Economic Forum. That is a huge, huge validation of these boards. And then, of course, one of the things that I played, because every Easter you got to play this, probably one of the most powerful validations. And I think when people are just getting introduced to the boards, and I'll bring it back to conversation, is it's important for people to hear this, is you had on the boards, an anon asks, hey, can you guys have the boss Trump, put out tippy top, or tip top shape, or something like that, so, so we can get validation to, these boards saying, the power that they wield. And then of course Trump goes out on that particular Easter and says, tippy top, and he just doesn't choose words from that. He uses the entire phrase, and then he goes tippy top shape. And it was just, I imagine, fireworks at the time for every digital soldier that was following it. So I say all that to say this: these exposure operations that are happening and that are about to happen at a more accelerated rate are going to change the way social media operates right now, because there is a back door into X, this platform that we're using. A lot of you have witnessed, some of you have even been victim of it, that Elon's taken over. Why are we still seeing conservative people and accounts being shut down? Why are we still seeing censorship? And you have to understand that Elon is well aware of this, and he could shut it down if he wanted to. But there are third parties that are operating these backdoors that were created into Twitter, now X. And every time they go through that door, it's being monitored. And so what you're seeing is the collaboration of private, law enforcement, and military working together to identify these different entities that are coming through to do this. And at the same time, one of the things they're doing in these exposure operations is they're recognizing who is who. You have the useful idiots, then you have the ones that absolutely know what they're a part of, and then obviously you have handlers, you have recruiters, you have organizers, all that. And all that's happening right now in real time as we speak. And over the next few weeks, you're going to see accounts that are going to be systematically dissolved. Some is going to be public, and some is just going to be like, hey, what happened to so and so? And so I guess I'll land there, Jenny, unless you want to go with the next question.
And that's all by design, correct? Wouldn't you say all this by these accounts that people make involved with solve?
But just so you know, now it's very hard to hear you, or at least it
Okay.
was for me.
Yeah,
Well, while she fixes that, Santino, I don't know if you got a question for me, brother.
I just wanted to bounce off what you were saying, because you're absolutely correct about Klaus Schwab, the WEF. It's actually about exposure as well, because this Sunday, a probe has opened up on Klaus Schwab. It includes allegations that Klaus Schwab asked junior employees to withdraw thousands of dollars from ATMs on the behalf of the used forum funds to pay for private in-room massages at hotels. It also alleges that his wife, Hild, a former forum employee, scheduled token forum funded meetings in order to justify luxury hotels, travels, and organizing expenses. So it's also about exposure and what you were saying. So I just want to throw that out there. It actually taps into what you were saying, but you're absolutely correct on all points, Alpha.
Yeah, and Alpha was talking about that last night. And Alpha, what are the accounts that are going to be dissolved? That's all by design. That's all part of this plan, correct?
100%. So this is what I'll say. We each have our role, right? There are accounts on here playing bad guys that aren't bad guys. Just like there's accounts on here playing good guys that aren't good guys. Like I guess the biggest mistake anybody on this platform can do is to look at the bad guys and the good guys as singularities. Because it's not that way. You have multiple factions of bad guys on this platform. Now, sometimes they'll work in collaboration because, the end goal, it helps them both. But there is not that much cohesion as people would think. And that's why a lot of times, if you're trying to look at it and it's confusing, it's because you're looking at it as one entity. And when you look at something as one entity, it's hard for you to pick up the pattern recognition, because you're like, well, that wouldn't make sense for this. You have to look at the bad guys as there's multiple demons that are being battled. From the good guy perspective, it's also the same thing. Yes, do you have a quote unquote white hat operation that's playing out? You do. But you also have private organizations that want to save this country and save humanity. So they have deployed forces. You have contractors that are working through that, as well as you still have listen, as much as people don't want to hear what I'm about to say, is you still have good guys in the CIA, and you still have good guys in the NSA. You still have good guys in special executive services. Like, they still exist, and these guys are also still working. And so, 100%.
Thank you, Alpha. All right, everybody, if you guys have a question for Alpha, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will I'll call on you guys, or request mic if you haven't already. Alpha, can you talk a little bit more? I know Santino just touched on it, but talk a little bit more about these honeypots and your Klaus Schwab's wife doing these massages, and it was just basically a Jeffrey Epstein 2.0.
Yeah, 100%. So, shout out to Josh on this one, because I didn't know this until he put the information out there on the show last night. But Klaus Schwab's wife and him have a private massage company, and they've had it for a very, very long time. So when you look at the power that Klaus Schwab was able to rise to, you can make a safe assumption that these massage parlors weren't just, hey, my back's a little sore, I got a kink in my neck. No, that these things were absolutely monitored, and there's the same type of operation that Jeffrey Epstein did. We're going to catch you doing something that's illegal, or at least a crime of moral turpitude, and we're going to leverage that against you. And so that, once again, and we've said it before. I know we've had this conversation before, Jenny. You know, we talk about Jeffrey Epstein because that's absolutely important, but you got to recognize that they weren't Jeffrey Epstein wasn't the only institution doing that. Obviously, you see Klaus Schwab was doing it, and you can imagine how many others out there were doing it. So a lot of our politicians, people love them, but the thing is you don't know the way these people are in their private life. But these intelligence agencies, both law enforcement and military, that have been monitoring these people, they know every text message. They know every mistress. They know every politician that is closet gay or closet lesbian. Well, the intelligence agencies know that if they maintaining that part of their life as a secret, then it's something that they can leverage against them. They know these politicians that probably have a child in another relationship that they're playing for, that their current wife doesn't know about and hasn't been made public, so they know. So these honeypots, these leverage operations, aren't just about, like the honeypot one specifically is creating the situation to make these people fall into a trap to leverage against them. But the other part of these leverage operations is these people backgrounds get dived into from the earliest parts of their life. Some of them, it's not even stuff that they did wrong. It's just stuff they're embarrassed of. You have politicians that were the victims of sex crimes as kids, and they can't deal with that becoming public knowledge. And so that gets leveraged against them. And you got to understand that once this leverage is used against the person, now it gets them to do something that's bad. So even though the leverage itself may not have been bad, it was used to get them to do something bad, which now creates the ultimate leverage, which is, well, it doesn't matter if you were a good guy before, we've now made sure that you're not a good guy. And then they have complete operational control over these people. So the honeypot one's probably the easiest one to kind of fathom. You use a good looking guy or you use a good looking girl, and you go and you create this situation that and it's not just politicians, leaders um, will fall into. You have influencers, content creators that get honeypotted, but it's not necessarily through a physical woman or a physical guy. It's through the illusion of a relationship that then results in the disclosure of information, with quote unquote digital pillow talk, and all of a sudden that gets leveraged against them. And why is this digital pillow talk important in this digital warfare? Because now this honeypot gets to report back to their people saying, hey, this particular person is dealing with this financial issue, or this particular person is dealing with this custody issue, or whatever the case may be, which now allows this intelligence apparatus to go and use another person or a group of people to go and all of a sudden start becoming friends with this content creator, start creating this atmosphere where this content creator, influencer, alternative media person now begins to trust this group of people. And so now when these group of people, which are all operating together, they're all part of the same apparatus, present this person, well, hey man, why don't you go and you can make money doing this? This is something that so and so's doing and we're all doing, because they know this person's in a financial bind. They weaponize that scenario against this particular influencer, content creator, alternative media person, and the next thing you know, this person starts to get some breathing room, their chin's above water, they're not going to lose their home or their car or whatever the case may be, and then they get sucked into that financial honeypot. And so just understand that when we're talking honeypot operations, it's not just the movie ones of, oh, this beautiful man or beautiful woman got this person to sleep with them, and there's these 8mm photographs that we can leverage against them. It's actually way more sophisticated than that. It's not just one person. It's one person that initiates the contact, and then after that person gets enough information from that, that's when the apparatus will come and surround the person. And that's why, and this comes back to pattern recognition, as you guys are watching these things happen on these spaces, if you notice a certain person all of a sudden is in this bubble of new people, and you start to see that change the way that person operates, it's not definitive. There's a lot more you got to look into, but it's at least a red flag to show you this person just got honeypotted, and this is why we're seeing this change in this person.
And we're seeing a lot of that unfold to everybody here in real time, not necessarily just here on X, but we're seeing it on Telegram, we're seeing it on, we're seeing it on the world. So please pay attention to that, everybody. I do, like I tell my audience, stay out of the noise. Just keep hanging on to the positive wins that are happening, because there's a lot of stuff going on that people can get totally distracted from. But there is a lot of stuff going on as we're speaking right now. So,
Jenny,
and then go ahead.
You're kind of echoing. I was going to ask Alpha. Alpha, is there a chance that if Jenny hopped off her computer, went to her cell phone, would she get kicked out?
Yeah, this is going.
Go ahead.
If she activates the cell phone while she's doing it at the same time, I think she's fine. I've never done that transition from computer to phone, but I think she should be fine if she opens it up on the phone and uses it there.
I don't know, Jenny, because you're kind of going back. You're kind of echoing back and forth. We can't get all the words. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, let me. I'm gonna reconnect. See if I can do it.
Oh, we just go to the next 10. Go ahead, Sergeant.
Hey, thank you. Alpha, I got a question for you. Hey, you talk about good guy ops and bad guy ops. We rarely hear about the good guy ops. Like the most recent one I heard about was Pete Texas going down to the Panama Canal and saying, "Hey, China, you're not going to do this. You didn't build this. You're not going to operate it." Stuff like that. Gets very little news coverage. Now, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing with all the different good guy ops going on? I mean, I understand it's a OPSEC thing, but the average person doesn't get to hear about that. Do you think that disheartens the people, or does it actually encourage them? What are your thoughts on that?
If it's someone that's new to the red pill or new to the awakening or new to information warfare, I could see how it could be very disheartening at first, but there's no way around it either. If you rewind the clock back to 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, the ability to make the awakening a slow process, um the time was allotted for that, and I think that's why certain things were deployed the way they were. Where we're at right now is the time is not available to do a slow awakening process. Right now it's going to be shock and awe. However, what exists now, here's the benefit though. What exists now that didn't exist then is, now in that shock and awe moment, you have a community there to kind of support these people and be like, hey, don't panic. There's this and there's that. So as these people get the revelation to these operations and the way these things work, they're also going to see how many people have already been made aware of this, that are confident in how they operate, and so there's people to lean on.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.